My friend Tommy Mello is joining me here on the Bring On Success show. Hey, Tommy, how are you?
Good, Jim. Pleasure to be here. I always love these intimate sessions with you.
Yeah, I love being intimate with you, buddy. It's great. So, just read your new book. Just came out. Everybody's talking about it. Elevate, the 5 pillars. It's really kind of a simple idea, the way you set up the book. And it's all about elevating your team. Of course, you have to build the team and you elevate them and you reward them. Talk a little bit about the book.
Yeah, so it's 5 pillars: leadership, culture, marketing, recruiting, and systems. And it really is about elevating your mindset and everybody around you. I just did a shop tour with three companies, and I was just explaining, what is your guys' goal? Where do you want to be? What's your dream? What's your life look like when you hit what you want? You've got to have a meaning of what you want to hit. You got to have a mindset. And the book is really about just elevating, build a business where everybody wins. The employees win, the clients win, I win, my partners win, the vendors win, and the whole industry wins. And I think that in life, we're taught we win and lose. I just had one of my buddies, Jake, that's out of California. He said, I can't put your book down. My mind is racing. It won't stop. I want to grow just not my business, but the people involved. And the message goes on and on. It's a couple of paragraphs, but it's the ultimate compliment when somebody reads it. And it's not a big book. I mean, it's
easy to digest. Yeah.
It's easy to. Al Levy was in the book, and he said, Tommy, I read your book in 3 hours from soup to nuts. And that's what I wanted to keep it simple, concise. I'm starting to really enjoy writing books. And this book took me 2 years. And I think I'm going to get faster because I'm coming up with systems. But, first I had to figure out what the biggest things I wanted people to take. And those were the pillars. And these 5 things are they're going to blast people through their mindset and the walls they have.
No, absolutely. Okay. So in chapter 2, that's the first pillar. It's leadership. Why don't you touch upon what people would find in that chapter?
Yeah, so I tell stories throughout the book. Tom Howard wrote the foreword. I think the main goal of the leadership is you got to lead by example, lead from up front. There's a lot of chapters in the book. I'm finishing the Audible. And it's interesting. I tell a story of we recently partnered with PE. And what PE is able to do to a smaller company, by putting in systems and getting the right leaders, it's amazing. I feel like everybody's getting tested right now to make sure they're at a level that could go to $1 billion. And it's about growth mindset. And leaders, look, Simon Sinek wrote a book, Leaders Eat Last. And leadership is not just about tracking KPIs. It's about building relationships. And it's about caring. And that's really what this whole book is really all about. And then culture is a bad word. Marketing is my passion. And marketing, I look at as recruiting. Marketing is very similar. People don't look at marketing the same way for recruiting, and it's a shame.
Yeah, no, it's important. The recruiting piece is critical, and HR is generally the most expensive piece of any business. Labor, there's no question, in almost every business. It's also often, for the leader, for the business owners and some managers, the most difficult thing, because people aren't machines. They have emotions. They're all different. They're not all motivated by the same thing. And that's where I believe a lot of businesses struggle, is managing people. Because just because you're a good technician as an HVAC guy and you leave the company to start your own, so you were a tech and now you start your own business, and now you're like, well, I'll still be a tech and I'll hire people and I'll manage people. Then you find out, well, I don't like to manage people, and how come people don't listen to me, and how come they're not like me, and how come I tell them to stay at home because I can do it better? You've done something amazing by finding, hiring, and training, and then managing a great team.
Yeah, I learned this from Al Levy. He says, you've got to recruit, You've got to orient. Well, recruit, hire, orient, train, and then retain. And I, Al Levy shares some stories in there about him and his dad working for his dad and what just the nightmare that business could be without systems and processes in place. Now, bringing on Jody with Rapid Hire really helped me understand that I was going fishing in the same spot everybody else was. So looking outside of the box to find people and understanding attribution models and creating framework for hiring that we could actually compare to people because we interviewed the exact same way. And it's crazy. One A player could run circles around 3 or 4 B players. And when you start acquiring A players and giving them systems, the business becomes fun. And L always calls it vanilla because, you're not firefighting. Everything's kind of running smoothly. And every time I get to this point of vanilla, I decided to grow, and I grow. And right now I'm buried because we're going, I'm going to 10X this business again. And the framework of 10Xing is into this book. It's Ken Goodrich wrote some stuff on the back. I mean, it's Danny Kerr wrote some stuff in here with Breakthrough Academy. I mean, I took a few people because it really hit the points I wanted to iterate in the book. And it's really just a lot of great stories. It explains, there was a hockey game and during a power play, they were way down 3 or 4 to nothing. And it's amazing what a team could pull through when you got to get things done and you got the goals and you got the mindset correctly.
It's really that simple. If you think about big machines like a McDonald's, any big organization has to have systems. And if you don't have systems, you have chaos. You have a bunch of employees running around, managers putting fires out. And when things are systematized and everyone knows what to do and how to do it, there's just less chaos and fires.
I was on this show called American, I forget the name of it. It was years ago, American Entrepreneur or something like that. And I said, where were you guys? Tell me an interesting story about where you guys were recently. And The American Dream, I think the show was called. And they said, well, we just got done with Kentucky Fried Chicken and KFC now. And they open a new store every 11 hours. Mm. And so my brain started it went into a new phase of thinking where I was like, what would the systems need to be? You would have to have a blueprint for the building. You'd have to have a leasing, understanding how to buy the property, the site plan, the recruiting. I mean, all in 11 hours. Think about how robust that could be, and then be able to get the marketing to keep that place slammed. It's just absolutely phenomenal when you figure out, you look at McDonald's or KFC or Subway, what they do and how they work their model. I was watching something by Ray Kroc about how he figured out, you probably watched the movie with that came out, but
the founder
figured out that owning the property was where the money's at. And how do you grow? Well, the franchise model works. It's never been my cup of tea, but it works out well when it's in confined space. I think restaurants are a lot easier than home service because we've got people from East Coast to West Coast. We've got to drive. We've got to book the phone. There's a lot more capacity planning. Capacity planning at KFC is, do I have enough chicken and coleslaw
and oil?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, you're right. And the franchise system is actually a great example of one that has to be perfect, because the people who often buy a franchise are not necessarily entrepreneurial, and they often, buy a job. So they have to plug themselves into a system that is foolproof.
Systems, people always ask, there's that show called The Profit, and it's Marcus Lemonis says people, product, process. And people ask me which one's my favorite, and I always say process, because the process picks the people. If you got the right process, the ride along forms, the checks and balances, the background checks, the drug tests, the driving record tests, I mean, it makes it simple. We've got formulas that we know this how many people we need to interview to get the right person. And it always changes over the course of a quarter because we get better and better at putting materials out there that attract A players. But Hey, players find work. They're talking to people at gas stations. They're asking for the HOA president. They're out there at a B&I meeting representing you. They're recruiting for you at a restaurant. It's amazing when you build a team, but they need to have structure. They need to have a manual and a handbook, and they need to understand how to ask for PTO. And they need every single one of my employees has a scorecard, and they understand where they're at in comparison to their team. And we take the mean. We let them know. We have monthly one-on-ones. And we're changing that soon to buy every 2 weeks. So I think the one thing too is I see a lot of businesses, they criticize all the time in public. They'll say, we need to be better at driving. We need to do this. We need to do this. That's for a private conversation. You should only be saying the great things in public, because if it's always a drag to go to one of your meetings where you're getting down on everybody, it's not a good culture, which is discussed in the book.
Culture is key. Getting back to recruiting, I like the way you recruit. A lot of people look for people who are desperately looking for a job. You don't necessarily do that with the system with Jody. You are finding people who are generally employed, but are looking for something better, which is always a better hire.
83% of people say they'd be willing to leave the current company they're at for a better opportunity. The opportunity is not always money, and that's what people think. It's always about money. Well, there's been proven studies, over $60,000 doesn't change much for an employee. Over $200,000 changes zero for the way employees will work and the way they'll do things. So how do they feel valued and communicated with? And do they have an opportunity to move up in the company? And it might not always be money. It might be a larger challenge. And understanding what people are looking for should be, when somebody interviews and they ask me a million questions, I've seen you all over the internet, I've studied your company, I want to work for you, I want a career. Those are the best hires because they say exactly what they want. And Jody and I talk quite often, and he's like, Tommy, you should see these people follow you on Instagram and on TikTok and on Facebook and on LinkedIn, and they know everything about you. They want to work with you. And I wish I had the personal relationships I had 10 years ago with everybody, but we're at 700 employees now. And unfortunately, I can't build. If I spent 5 minutes with every person, that's 3,500 minutes. There's not much that time in a year to work. So I'm sure there isn't a year. If that's all I did. But
so Tommy, what you just said is what I tell people in terms of sales, which is you don't want to sell to someone. You want them to buy from you, which means they're already interested in you. So if someone contacts you on a form online or calls in and they say, I want to purchase, or I need a new garage door, I need a new air conditioning system, they've already decided that they want to hire you, versus you doing a cold call saying, hey, can we come out and look at your garage? That right? So it's a lot easier when that employee or the prospective employee says, oh yeah, I've heard a lot of things about Tommy Mello and A1, and it's a great place to work, I hear. And so they're already in the mindset of, I can see myself there.
Yeah, you make a great point. I used to do endorsed radio ads, that's right up your alley. I mean, I used to do several people, Glenn Beck. I mean, there was different people, but they have a loyal audience, and someone would call in and they say, hey, I heard you on Glenn Beck. I'm buying the door from you. Come out. I want to buy the best package. I believe in you guys. I believe in what you do.
Yep.
And that's influencer marketing in a nutshell, really. And there's a huge opportunity. I mean, look, I'm still in the fetal stages of this business. I know I'm just getting started, and it feels like a different company every year because of the growth. I'm more in the technology business now than the garage door industry, but I got a lot of work to do, and I'm still enjoying Mondays. And that's my key of why I'm going to stay in this industry for another 5 years, decade. I don't know, but because I don't mind going to work on Mondays. I love Saturdays, but I also love Mondays. And I think a lot of people, when you start hating Mondays is when you might want to start looking at a new career.
Yeah. So for the business owner that doesn't like Mondays and they're really having trouble liking people in the office, that's often when some people decide to sell, to get out. And, you hear about it all the time. There's different reasons why a company may sell or an owner may sell. And that's one of them. You know, the other is
Well,
they're just too old and they want to cash out. But some people
mo-
just go ahead.
yeah, well, most business owners, they did the work. They were the technician, and they say I could do this good as long as I can keep the phone ringing. And a lot of these businesses, they hit just enough success to stay in business, but not enough to want to sell because the business might not be worth a lot. So what I tell these people is when you're getting into business, you need to start thinking about a mindset of what people want to work for you. Your goal should be to take yourself out of the business. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of money when we start a business. So we put in our sweat equity, which is 2, 3, 4, 5 years of hard work. And the biggest mistake that I commonly see is the owner and his wife, or the owner and her husband, will go out and they'll say, we deserve this Harley. We deserve this second house that's not it's not an annuity because you're not renting it out. And you take the thing that finally gave back to you and you divest it instead of putting it back in. And this is the key to my success was I re-upped, and I had delayed gratification. And I was able to make some tough choices to not divest into the one thing that I finally had enough money to make investments back into the business rather than divest. And that's how you go. It's amazing what people think they can get done in a year, but underestimate what they can get done in 5. And so that's why I think knowing what you want and having clear goals on how to get there. You should know exactly how many phone calls you need. The 3 companies here I went through and I showed them how to budget. I said, you want to make $10 million? Divide that simply by your average ticket. That's how many calls you need. You got to divide that by your closing rate and your booking rate. And then you just multiply that by your cost to acquire a customer.
Mm.
And then that's how much your marketing budget is. And then I can tell you exactly, if you guys are running 3 to 4 calls a day, how many technicians you need. So now you know exactly what you need to hit to be at a $10 million company is the example I used for them. And I said, now you guys understand in your minds exactly what the numbers need to be. Now I said, let's tweak a few things. Let's raise your average ticket a little bit. Let's increase your conversion rate by 5% and your booking rate by 6%. Your marketing budget literally just cut in half.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And it's crazy how it works. And it really is an easy formula once you do it enough times. But I love business. And I'm just getting started. I really feel like so many people are like, man, you've made it. You've made a lot of money. You're huge. And I'm like, no, I'm nothing. I feel like I'm just getting started. Like I dipped my toe in the water.
It's all relative, and you're an entrepreneur. You love business. You love the game. And you can go down the list of people, whether it's a Donald Trump or an Elon Musk or any of the greats, they're all still every day doing it because that's what they do. If they lost everything, they'd get it all back real quick. It's amazing how quickly they can get their billions back, isn't it? And so
I was just reading a book that said if you were to just disseminate all the money across equally, the same top 10% would have the money back within 3 years.
Mm-hmm. That's because that's the type of athlete they are. That's the athlete they are. They're an A player and they know how to do it. They will never starve. They will always be prosperous. And it's because of who they are. And understand, everybody, not everybody can be that player. Not everybody wants to be that player. Tommy Mello is that player. It's who he wants to be. And it's relatively easy for you. I'm not saying you don't work hard, but it comes easy to you. Just like there are some natural athletes that can run circles around me. It doesn't matter how much I train. Okay. I was never going to be a Tom Brady. He had a lot of innate qualities and he worked on a skill and he became arguably the best quarterback of all time, or at least, in recent history.
He is. He's definitely the best quarterback. He's got the proof. The proof's in the pudding, the Super Bowl rings. I mean, ultimately, my biggest challenge, and this is something I discussed with the president of the company yesterday for 5 hours, is I need to make sure that I enable people and get the right leadership, because unfortunately, some of the things I'm working on now is super complex. Elon Musk said he needed to be the rocket scientist for the first 2 years till he found the right person. So I think one of the things I find in common with billionaires and people living their best life, and just because you're a billionaire doesn't mean you're living your best life, but typically you get a lot more choices. Money gives you choices. They're the best networkers. And I'm in this weird position in my life where there's three things I'm kind of looking at. I'm looking at the networking, the speaking, the podcasting, I'm putting a lot of content out. And then the second piece is just the love and just recognition of my internal customers that you can't put a price on. And then the third one is the KPIs, the things that run the business, checks and balances, systems, processes, manuals. And so I'm just like, I feel like sometimes I spend too much time over here, not enough time here, maybe too much time here, not enough there. So there's this balancing act, and it's not easy. I'll tell you, I'm my own worst critic, and I don't feel like I'm where I need to be, but I just turned 40 and I'm happy where I'm at 40. I mean, obviously I'd love to have kids and get married, but as far as my professional life and what I'm doing on a daily basis, I enjoy my life. And I think that not a lot of people could say that. Not a lot of people could say that I have fun because I'm the visionary and I get to work on the vision of where we're going and how we're going to get there and how to make a better situation in a department. And it's fun when it's working together. And, you know, you're only as strong as your weakest link, but if you could get that weak link strong and start building those links up, the system just starts perpetually growing. And it's like, I'm pretty passionate about it. And I know where I want to go. And building budgets, doing financial quick checks, getting involved in the finance side of the business. I would say I had an associate's degree in understanding how money worked in PE. Now I'm getting a master's degree. Hopefully I get a doctorate. And that's, you know, Ken Goodrich told me, when you partner with a company that understands financial engineering, you're going to be you are going to be a lethal weapon after the next 2 to 3 years. And I'm like, all right, let's go.
So you have grown a tremendous amount since you started A1. So let's step back in time. Let's go back to the beginning days when you were painting garage doors. If I'm not mistaken, that's what you were doing. I could be wrong.
You're right.
And you had a partner back then, and this wasn't that long ago. I mean, it may seem that to you, but people who've been around for a while, they're like, that wasn't all that long ago. Tell us about the conversion, because when you look back at the Tommy Mello in the beginning of A1, you weren't the same guy as you are today. A huge change.
Yeah. You know, I think the fact was I was in the field every day, although I never was a garage door technician for another company. I was a technician within the company. I would answer all the phone calls. I was a CSR. I'd do the payroll. So I was in the payroll division. I would do the inventory. So I learned every facet. But back then, I would say I never wanted to spend the money to get a great employee. I was good at creating revenue, not good at keeping it. Revenue is for vanity, profits for sanity. And over the course of the 10 years that I started reading. I read the E-Myth, The Ultimate Sales Machine, The Richest Man in Babylon. And I just started to read. And then I started to go visit very successful shops in HVAC, because HVAC were the godfathers of home service. They were getting the biggest multiples. These are the guys with the private planes. In 1991, Nexstar started. It was called something 5000. And Frank Blau, George Brazil got together, and they decided to partner up with a lot of companies and really focus on understanding the budget and understanding manuals and building processes and making six figures and still making 15% for the company. So I studied these companies, and I take away 10 gold nuggets every time I visited. And I just started going more and more, where every week I was going visiting a company, and I'd go apply it, then go again, go apply it, then go again. And then I got some really smart people to start working with me. And I slowly tasked them with the things that I hated, because they loved it. You know,
Sure.
like I don't love, you know, a pivot table on an Excel sheet, but there's certain people that just, they really love that, doing that. It like makes them, it fulfills them. It's a brain puzzle for them to do these things. And I've built the business that I want, that I enjoy.
You know, it's so important to understand that too, that not everyone is the same. That's why we may put our people through, you know, a DISC program to really learn who they are. They may not know themselves, you know, are they a D and an I or an S? And that's helpful to everyone, including management. And so you're right, there's different players on the team. Not everybody can be quarterback, and not everyone should be, and not everybody wants to be. Some people, rather block. Some people rather, receive. It's true. So there's just different players, and you've done a great job, Tommy, in number one, going back to what you're just saying, educating yourself. You basically got on the phone or email and said, may I come see your facility? Give me a tour. I want to learn, right? Can I fly here and do that? And so you pushed hard to get to know other people and to see how they operate. You made a lot of friends in the process. Then you bring it back home to A1, and then you put the right people in the right place. And it seems like magic, and to some extent it is, but most people can't do what you do because they get in their own way. They don't know when to say it's not all about me. Yes, today I can do it better than my hire, but I've got to get these new hires trained, because we all think when we start a business that no one else can do it. No one else can do it like me. Get out of the way, I'll do it, right? I mean, how many times have you done that, back in the day? Look, don't even show up.
Well, look, when my partner would go out of town, I'd love it because I would book the phone calls and run the jobs, but our booking rate would go up 25%, and we make more money than ever. And I didn't realize, though, how to coach people. And also, you got to let people fall down and get back up like I did. So in the interim, you might lose some money in the course of taking yourself out of the business. And people don't want to deal with that. They've got fear. And there's another thing is a lot of people are afraid to let go of their top guy because they depend on that revenue. But sometimes you make those decisions, and now everybody comes up and they say, man, this guy's serious. He's not going to let that guy roll his eyes at the meetings. That guy was a prima donna that always put the meetings down and always, didn't show up on Fridays. And you let this stuff fester, and everybody else sees it, and it could be the destruction of a company very quickly. So don't let the inmates run the insane asylum.
Yeah. We hear about the disease or cancer running through an organization. You need to cut it out, cut out the cancer. I've spent a lot of time with many of your team members. Some of them I consider friends. And it's truly remarkable. It's almost as if, do you remember the show? Well, you wouldn't remember Fantasy Island, but Fantasy Island came out back in the late 70s. Okay. And it was about these people who would fly into this island. And when they arrived, the host, Mr. Rourke, would say, smiles, everybody, smile. So when the guests came, it looked like everything was a happy place and everything was orderly. It's kind of like when you go to A1, everyone's like that, but they're not told to do it. That's just who they are. The harmony, the family, everyone wants to help everybody. And it's almost unheard of. I mean, you're in the top point something percent of organizations in the country, I think, that have that type of culture in any industry. And so I want to compliment you on that. And it's just amazing. I don't know what to say.
It's like I said, I feel like I could be better. It's Ken Gooder sat down with me years ago and said, you're growing yourself every day outside of work. You're spending the time, and unfortunately, you're going to outgrow people because of how much time you're investing into yourself. And I was sitting there, obviously I took some chips off the table. It was a significant amount of money. And my buddy Keegan, he's got, lots and lots of money, and he's buying a private jet, and he's doing all these things. He's got a beautiful house in Naples, right on the ocean. And he said, Tommy, I've got some pretty unfortunate news for you. He goes, your circle's about to get a lot smaller. And he goes, because everybody's going to say you're changing. But the problem that they don't understand is they're not changing. They're not growing. He goes, so people say I've changed. But the fact is, it's because I'm reading every day. I'm learning, and I've got great mentors around me. And he's accelerating his life. I mean, his neighbor's a multi-billionaire, and they spend 2 hours a day together talking about stocks and investments and how to do that. And as these people around you, they don't grow. Unfortunately, I think it's the people around you sometimes that aren't growing at the pace. And yes, it's like if you ever went golfing and you continue to get better, you had a 20 handicap, you got down to 15, then you went down to 10. It's not as fun when you hit 5, your handicap becomes 5 to golf with those people at a 20 handicap. They don't challenge you, and it's not an insult. But if they would apply the same practice and mindset to their golf game and try to get better with you, then, what do they say? A high tide raises all boats or something like that. I don't, but literally, I think that's, it's unfortunate, but it's very good for me to hear stuff like that, because I want to be friends with everybody, but there's certain people that I've literally had to try to pull out of the circle. Not best friends. These guys are going to be my lifelong friends, but I'm just saying, it's certain people. It's like success leaves clues everywhere. You add up your closest 5 people, you hang out with them, your income's usually within 20% of theirs. And so I'm not choosing my friends based on income. That's not who I am. But obviously, it's kind of nice to be able to say, hey, listen, let's go to Australia. It's 10 grand a ticket. It's nice when other people say, that's fine, let's go.
Yeah. So I like spending time with you, but it's tough keeping up with you. So I don't want to be taken out of your circle. So I'm going to work as much as I can to keep up with Tommy Mello. Along those lines, when someone grows up in a small town and then they go off and maybe they go to college and they study and they become an entrepreneur and they go back 20 years later to the high school reunion and the townies are like, well, who do you think you are? It's that type of thing, right? Because you've changed, you've left the town and you grew.
It's an interesting point. I think the people I grew up with are pretty happy. It's crazy what Facebook and some of these social media sites do to watch people progress. They've seen the hard work, the blood, the sweat, the tears that went into it. They knew it wasn't always this easy. I went to my master's program with grease on my hands every day, and they look at me like I was a peasant. What's this garage door with the rape van doing here? That had some lettering on the side, and it was kind of a joke. And I'd smell like grease, and I knew I did. And some people really they didn't want to be around me because they were trying to move up a promotion at Honeywell, and I was sitting there just trying to get my bearings, and I was doing it for me. It's interesting. So I moved in a new house. I'm building a new office. I just got some acreage, and we're building another house in Sandpoint, Idaho. And right now, the biggest thing for me that I need in my life is order. I need new habits. I'm getting someone to help us with meal prep, where I'm going to have the trainer that shows up to me, even though my guy does. He's getting busy. All these things, once I get the order back, I don't want to ever have to get dressed. I want that stuff laid out for me like a lieutenant in the Army. I don't want to pack. I don't want to have to worry about food or vitamins and the things, because I can't buy health and I can't buy time. So those are something I'm working on. So once I get the organization and the right people and the new executive assistant, and I've got the content manager now, like I'm going to grow 10x in efficiency. And it's hard for people to comprehend that because, Elon Musk has the same amount of time in his day that we both do. Warren Buffett was talking to Bill Gates years and years ago, like probably 15 years ago. And he said, hey, Bill Gates said, I'd like to get on your schedule in 3 days. I want to go over a really big opportunity. And Warren Buffett takes his schedule, hands it to him. And he opens up the planner and he goes, well, you got nothing tomorrow. You got nothing on Thursday. You have one appointment Friday. He goes, and you make $400 million a year. And he goes, yeah, I've got great people that work for me. I insert myself where it's needed. And that's, my schedule's still really, really busy, but the plan is to really start to focus on the business. And I'm always doing stuff and I'm letting my team do them. But the more I focus on the systems and the technology, and whether that be AI or data mining, I see leaps and bounds when I focus on the business. But I know I need to give the love and attention and recognition each person needs. And I still know I need time for networking. So it's just sitting down and getting stuff done and finding a conclusion and then applying it. And I think that's very hard for a lot of people. They don't know what to do when they walk into their business. They say, I know I'm supposed to make manuals and I know I'm supposed to dial in the CRM and I should have a training center. I need to hire for this person. First thing is you need some help. You need to find someone good at doing some of the things you're not. And that should be your top priority. And to give yourself your time back, start hiring for what's pulling the most of your time. So if you're spending 20 hours a week on payroll, that's the first person you need to hire. You get 20 hours back.
Yeah. You know, if you're an entrepreneur and you're a sales and marketing person, like I am, like you are too, maybe you need a good operational person. That makes sense, right? Because you see, that's not my strength. I'm a visionary. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a sales and marketing guy. I'm a networker. I'm a connector. I have a piece of you in me, and we end up, you know, often being at the same event sometimes, and sometimes speaking on the same stage, because we like doing that, and it's also good for our business and our brands. And I really don't like the minutia. I'm not an operations guy, and I have people who do operational stuff for me. People are like, "Oh, you know, it's amazing what you do with these podcasts for contractors and stuff." And so, how does this work? I'm like, oh, you'll have to talk to Amanda, because that's what she does. I don't know, but so it's good to have these people, right? And often when people show up at work at 8 o'clock in the morning or 6 a.m., depending upon when you show up, you're getting ready to put that fire out. You know there's going to be a problem, and that's your job. Really, your job as the owner, as the president, the CEO of your company is to be the firefighter. It shouldn't be. You should be the visionary. You should be the driver of the company, and you need to put people in place to put out fires. But ultimately, and Tommy will agree, you should have less and less and less fires over time.
Yeah, checks and balances, data integrity. The systems need to be well thought out, and there's always a system that's improving. It's improved. There should be stuff always going on in the business of looking at. One of my buddies, Ryan Meacham, he's a consultant. And what he explained is that we reward people to find problems in the process. It's like, would you want Henry Ford finding the problem on the assembly line, or would you want the guy doing the same work every day to make it faster and figure out ways? So say, listen, the problem is if two people did this instead of one, I could speed up the production line by an hour back in the day with the Model T. Well, nobody knows better than that person doing it every day. So giving your people a voice matters as well. And rewarding them to find issues. That's a crazy mindset thought, is to say, listen, you guys do this every day. How do you think we can improve? And as long as your people are saying we should get a raise for this and a raise for this, which happens, say, listen, how do we make this more efficient? And it's funny because my Xavier, the videographer I have, he said, we were making content and the question was, what's the right way to ask your boss for a raise? And he's smiling. And I say, well, the best way to do that is to come up with a win-win, an elevate mindset, and say, Tommy, if I were able to figure out a way to make you an extra $1 million, could I keep 100,000 of it? What person in their right mind would say no to that? If I figured out a way to get a higher conversion rate, and I just want you to share with me a little bit, and here's how you win. So the goal of the book Elevate is to figure out a way that everybody could win. When I sit down with a vendor, I don't say I need a cheaper price. I say, what's your 1-year goal? What's your 3-year goal? What's your product mix in this area? Where are you struggling? Are you planning on opening or closing any stores? Where do you want me to grow in organically? How could I help you guys? Yeah. And in return, after I do, this would make it a lot easier. And it's not always a cheaper price. I need to get my guys in and out faster. I need you to open a separate bay for us to hold our special materials. I need you guys to help us out with co-op at the home shows. And that's going to help your brand. So my mindset is always, what's in it for them? How can I help them? And how can we come up with a win-win? And it's not always price. There's so much value that's delivered on other things than just price.
It's so smart. So many people try to beat up their vendors, and the vendor's doing you a favor. That supplier can do a lot more than just supply a product or service. To your point, Tommy, maybe, you know, they can hold the inventory somewhere at their expense. Maybe it will cost 2% more, 10% more for that product, but it's making your life easier. Now you don't need another warehouse with workers in that warehouse, because your supplier is going to hold on to it and do just-in-time inventory delivery. And so it's just a smart thing to do. is to, with your team members, with your suppliers, and anyone that's involved in the business, how can we help you? Every time I leave a phone call or in person, I say, is there anything else I can do for you today? It's these simple things. It's not all about me. However, we've learned the most important person in the room is me, is you. Everyone wants to hear their name and see it in the lights, and they want to be recognized. And so it's important that we say, what can we do for you? How can we help you? And we learn what turns them on and what they want. And what they want is something that's going to help them. And when it helps them, it could ultimately help us. And a lot of us are just going around in our own little bubbles. And we're like, it's good for me. I don't care if it's good for you. Give me the best price. And we're just circling in our little bubbles, right? And it doesn't work out that way. So what Tommy's done is he's opened everything up and said, hey, how can I help you help yourself, which will ultimately help everybody? And it's a real simple style. It's in Elevate. It's a great book. I've read the book. If you want a copy of it, you can order it through this podcast. In the description of the podcast is a link, and you can get it. And before we go, there's 5 bonuses. Can we quickly go through these? I've got them right here.
Yeah, if you got them in front of you, I know
I do.
we built them, but yeah, let's check.
I do. Bonus number 1 is winning ads and application page checklists. Okay. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, we came up with some of the things we've done in the company with the 5 bonuses. Basically, I've tested everything out in those bonuses, and I came up with things that people actually could use. And I just look, this book, I don't make money on a book. I don't. What I've learned is somebody's going to read these books, and I'm going off tangent here, but for some reason, it always comes back full circle when you help other people. And some people call me and they say, I've got this amazing opportunity for you because I read your book and I got so much from it. This is a little bit of gratitude to pay you back. And I don't go into this expecting anything, but I've taken these 5 bonuses, just things that I've worked on for years. And I think they're going to be very applicable. If I went through each one, it's minutia because they're different bonuses, but let's go through them all and I'll speak to them a little bit.
Sure. So the first one is winning ads.
Yeah. So, ads that convert better. And, with all the podcasting I've done with the top marketing companies in North America, I've found out some ads that do better than others. And one of the best ads is a financial, adding owner new unit for as low as $27 a month. And then having people to respond, it's a little bit longer of a process, and you got to be able to answer questions, but it's a great funnel.
Bonus number 2 is the interview bundle.
Learning how to interview properly. I just had the author of Who on my podcast, and it was absolutely phenomenal. I learned so much about interviewing correctly and having a system for interviewing so you can compare people.
Bonus 3, the 7 steps to delegation.
I learned that through Al Levy.
Al keeps coming up. He's like your Uncle Al. I love Al. Al's a great guy. Oh, I love him. Bonus number 4, objection handling system.
Yeah, I've learned to peel back the onion a little bit for objections. It's not always a price thing. I was explaining to the people I was just giving a tour to. A lot of times I add value. It doesn't cost me a lot of money. So learning how to handle objections is listening and finding out a win-win situation. Like I said, I don't want to lower my prices for you from a vendor. Well, there's 10 other ways to skin this cat. And finding the true objection. Like you might say, well, I want to talk to my wife about this garage door. Well, what do you think she's going to say? She's probably going to say it's too expensive. Okay, well, we've got other options, because if you're not giving options, you're giving ultimatums. So let's figure out something that's going to do everything you wanted. You want this door to not have any issues for 10 years. You wanted to be connected to the Wi-Fi. You wanted to make sure to keep all the nasty bugs out. You wanted it to be an attractive door from the outside. What corners do you want to cut? Do you want it to be non-insulated? We could do that. We could get you into we could give you into a different price bracket, but we're diminishing the value. And by the way, the garage door delivers 100% ROI in the home. It's proven. 6 years in a row, Remodel Magazine. It's better than your kitchens or bathrooms. So, and to understand an objection and be able to peel it apart and peel back those layers of the onion is important.
An objection is just another opportunity to sell and close. Number 5, bonus 5, is my favorite, and this is probably worth the most. Tommy's personal Rolodex.
Yeah, so I've taken tried and true vendors, and whether it be Rapid Hire or there's certain people on there that I've used, and it took me 10 tries to use them, to use other vendors, and I finally found the right ones that actually are proven for a $200 million company. And the nice thing about these vendors is I started out small and they grew with me. So the tried and true, and I felt like I could help them out and the people, the audience, by getting them more work and helping them succeed in their home service company.
Elevate is the name of the book. I've read it. It's fantastic. And the link to order it is in the description of this podcast. I read Tommy's first book. I think this one is a bit better. 2 totally different books. But I think as we move on with things, we get better at stuff. And I think also that book was written a few years back, and Tommy has learned so much more. When you look at what Tommy's learned, and when you look at his numbers and growth, it's not like, well, 10 years ago he was doing this and now he's finally doubled the business. No. He's like doubling it in a very short amount of time. So everything that Tommy's learned over time is in Elevate, but I bet most of it is probably in the last 5 years or less.
It's interesting. Take 10,000 and double it 9 times. So if you can figure out to double a couple of times a year, and you spend 4.5 years doubling, it's amazing what you could get. The rule of double is just an amazing rule, and it gets you to these astronomical numbers. And it's harder to double when you grow, but if the systems are in place, it's not as hard. You look at Subway the first 25 years, then the chart when they figured things out, it's like straight. And the systems dictate the output, and there's quality controls in place. And that's talk about that in the book. And the bonuses include some of this stuff, but success leaves clues. I try to give as many clues as possible. If you listen to the podcast, The Home Service Expert, Home Service Millionaire book, Elevate, Build a Business Where Everybody Wins. I think that I've been very open. I let people do a shop tour. I show them everything I'm working on. I find that even open book management, letting people know our numbers, letting them know our profitability, every single employee, it doesn't matter to me. My coworkers is what I call them. You'll find I call them employees in the beginning, and then I start calling them coworkers, because I find employees that work could be belittling. Oh, my employees, they're my coworkers, and I get the honor to work with them.
Absolutely. Some people call them team members, which is better than employees as well. And you certainly don't want to call them tools. I'm just saying, okay? I've heard that before as well. Tommy Mello, on that note, thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate it. The book is Elevate. It's here in the description of this podcast. Order it if you don't have it. And then go see Tommy speak sometime. Bring the book with you and have him sign it. That'll be an extra treat.
Thanks,
Tommy.
Jim.
I appreciate it. Okay.